On to other international news of the day. Russia denied its aircraft violated NATO airspace and warned that countries making such accusations risked escalating tensions. In fact, Russia accused NATO member Estonia of falsely claiming that 3 Russian military jets had violated its airspace for 12 minutes on Friday, saying that Tallinn was trying to ratchet up a confrontational atmosphere.
Our Ministry of Defense has categorically denied those allegations. Moreover, in the statement issued by our military referenced objective control data. We have never heard the Estonian side mention that they possess any such objective control data. That's why we consider such claims to be empty, unfounded, and a part of a completely reckless campaign to escalate tensions and provoke a confrontational atmosphere.
Russia's war against Ukraine started more than 3.5 years ago, and it's changed the political and economic landscape in Europe. Now, the EU has prepared another package of sanctions against Russia, another effort to put pressure on Moscow to end its aggression. Lars Holte is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin now. Lars, thank you for being with us. What can you tell us about the latest sanctions package?
Thanks for having me. Yes, yet another initiative. This is indeed the 19th sanctions package that the EU has prepared. And you have to wonder if any of those have done anything. They have likely, of course, worsened the situation economically in Russia, but they haven't done much in terms of moving Moscow, moving Putin any closer towards ending his war in Ukraine. Anyway, there are 2 reasons why this 19th initiative was now put together. First of all, just over a week ago, Russian fighter drones got into Polish and Romanian airspace, and then we've seen another breach over Estonia just this weekend. So, of course, Western alliances had to respond to a violation of EU and NATO airspace. Also, US President Trump has implored the EU to join his country in levying higher tariffs against China and India, specifically for buying Russian gas. And while it's unlikely that anyone in Brussels wants to play the tariff game Trump has started, they do understand the pressure here. Trump said quite clearly that he insists on such action, otherwise he won't show any support in the ongoing struggle with Moscow. And the EU, as well as anyone in NATO, knows, of course, that US participation is absolutely necessary if they're seriously hoping to eventually end this long and deadly conflict.
Okay, Lars, what exactly are the sanctions in this new initiative?
Maybe the most important one is an earlier date for a total embargo on Russian gas. Now, it might be news to many, but some EU countries are still, to this day, receiving gas from Moscow, mostly due to old contracts. Those countries are all located in the southeastern part of Europe. Among them are Slovakia or Hungary, where President Orban has just last year even signed new delivery deals with Moscow. Now, the EU is saying that a full embargo on Russian gas, currently planned for 2028, could now come as early as 2027. Of course, that still sounds like a long ways away, but it would be costly for Moscow. Also, the EU wants to drastically restrict visa for Russian citizens, another step that, of course, comes very late. Some member countries, especially Italy, France, Spain and Greece, have still admitted lots of Russians. There could be a crackdown now. Brussels is also looking into the legality of using frozen Russian assets to directly help Ukraine, like using money technically owned by Russian oligarchs to send to Kiev to pay for weapons and ammunition and such.
And Lars, what about the news about EU putting tariffs on China and India?
Apparently, the EU is unwilling to do that. The tariff game is Trump's game, and leaders in Brussels have so far not joined in. But they do agree that they need to put more pressure on China and India, trying to lessen their support for Moscow. The EU says they might sanction Chinese and Indian banks, as well as refineries that are trading in Russian oil. Specifically, they're talking about 12 Chinese and 3 Indian entities. We're also hearing that the EU wants to add more chemicals, metal components, salts and ores to existing export bans on Russian, Chinese and Indian companies. Let me quote one of the EU parliamentarians involved in the making of this sanctions package. It's true, she says, that we have to tackle the bypassing of sanctions to third-party countries like China and India. But she also says technically they don't need Trump calling for such measures. In fact, she says the EU should in turn ask Trump to put pressure on Hungary's Orban and Slovakia's Fico himself. After all, he considers them friendly, and it's their countries that are the ones still buying Russian gas.
Thank you very much, Lars Holt, for all those updates.